What does it really mean when a surface or a space is clean? For pros in the cleaning and restoration industries, clean goes far beyond just what meets the eye. In this episode of Unscripted, we break down the definition of clean from both the professional's and the client's perspective, and we'll talk about common misconceptions, lingering odors, ugly traffic lanes, and what you should really expect when a carpet or surface has been properly cleaned. So, whether you're a homeowner with questions or a pro looking to better communicate with clients, this episode is for you. It's my pleasure to welcome two colleagues that I value, Dr. Gavin McGregor Skinner with IICRC and Dr. Mike Payete. Wait, it's not Dr. Mike, is it? Is it Mike?
Not quite yet.
Not
Working
quite
on
yet.
that.
Mike is a business owner who spent time in the trenches, and we invited both gentlemen to be on the program today to talk about clean, what it is, maybe what it isn't, and what we can learn to serve our clients or facilities in a better way. So, thank you both for your time today. I know you're very busy men, so let's get right into it. Our first question is an easy one, but maybe to some an impossible question. How do you define clean from a professional standpoint? And how do you explain the difference between visual cleanliness and hygienic cleanliness? And Gavin, we'll start with you. Tell us a little bit about yourself and then answer that question, please.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff, and it's great to be on today with Mikey P. I have watched his videos, so if you're seeing this for the first time, go and watch some of his YouTube videos because they're really practical and they're really useful. So this is really interesting, Jeff. We've been going back and forth on this since the Egyptians built the pyramids, in the fact that clean is no longer subjective, because I'm pretty sure the Egyptians, when they built the pyramids, actually measured clean, because you've ever been to Egypt, they're still pretty clean. But cleaning is not subjective, it's measurable, and it depends on the built environment that you're actually cleaning. There are some people going, oh, if it's just visually clean, it's good enough. But there's so many of the facilities. There's 140 million buildings in this country which all serve a mission and a function and have to be cleaned to different levels to meet that critical mission or the critical function they're designed for. So that's where we're trying to say, well, cleaning's not subjective. You need to measure it because you're spending money on labor, tools, equipment, and product. And one of the jobs I do at IICRC through our Making Safer Choices program, I go to so many commercial industrial facilities going, and I start, what's your budget this year? And then just tell me and explain to me how you came up with that number. And then I then decide whether it was an informed decision or they just made stuff up. And we really don't want people to make stuff up.
Gavin, I did not know you were going to start off with your comments pushing Mike Payete's YouTube channel, but
Wow.
I mean, now your views, Mike, are going to skyrocket because someone from Australia said to go to your channel. You're welcome. Right, Gavin? You're welcome.
Uh,
So, thank you, Gavin, for that. That was good. Mike, introduce yourself, tell us a bit about yourself, and then you can rebut what Gavin just said. That's fine.
yeah, well, I really appreciate it, and that was a surprise for me too. And I always discount the reach of my YouTube channel. Anyhow, I've been cleaning on a mostly residential level for 40 years now, and I continue to go out and clean. Our observances of what the customer wants, desires, can't be matched. And if we're people pleasers, people, and curious, our observances can't be discounted. It's just incredible what we see on a day-to-day basis. So I'm liking this question here. What is clean? And I can tell you, that obviously COVID changed our awareness of bacterial count and all the meters that can be used. But for most residential customers, visual is clean, visual and odor. They don't care what's underneath. They're totally unaware of what their vacuum doesn't get. And as long as it looks good, you know, it makes the cleaners that are event cleaners, someone's coming to visit, the house is going up for sale, they have to get it cleaned, versus the routine cleaners that every April 15th they get their floors cleaned, whether there's a spot on it or not. It's really just about the visual aspect of it. Some of them will put value in that it's supposedly going to last longer, as far as carpet goes. But I've never been asked to prove that I've reduced the bacterial count or anything along those lines, the germ count or anything like that. Certainly not here in northern Nevada, which is quite a different mindset than the California coast, where I used to do this. But when it comes to hard surface, I think a lot of people are putting in unabsorbent surfaces for that reason. They perceive it's going to be easier to clean themselves, and usually it takes about a year for the white sock reality to let them know that they're not able to keep that floor reasonably clean. And then they start hiring the pros, and it's upon us to train them how to keep it properly cleaned after our visit.
So, Mike,
Yeah.
how many times does it take to service a client to where they just trust you and believe you're giving them the best clean possible? Is that a relationship you have to build over time? Because you meet,
Uh, it can be done in the first visit if we spend our time, and that's something I really drill into new cleaners is budget that hour of time to bond with the homeowner. They're doing their due diligence. It's super imperative that you connect on with them on that first visit. Because if you don't, you're just one more failed cleaner and they're just going to keep looking. And it's not about the results. Most good customers want that trust and faith that you're going to do as best possible, but more importantly, you can be in the home alone. So they don't want to take time off from work or vacation spent watching you. If you can connect on that first visit, the next time you have the key, the access code, you have their Venmo or their checks under the mat, and you can get in and out, do a phenomenal job, and just so much easier that way. And those people are going to be the kind that refer you to their like-minded friends. Customers that don't trust you have to be home. They're leery. They've been through the gamut with untrustworthy, speedy carpet cleaners that are in and out. That's a tough life because you're going to be advertising your entire career to get new customers without
so
those repeats.
thank you, Mike. So we realize the relationship is important, taking care of your clients. They're going to look at the visual. They're going to respond to how does it look to them? How does it smell to them? Gavin, let's go to you and talk about, now you're not a carpet cleaner, Gavin, right? Although you probably have a carpet. Okay. But if you were to speak to a client, like let's say Mike's going to go do a cleaning job, brand new client. Gavin, you're going along to help. You're going to help him unload the van and maybe push the wand back and forth. Hang with me here. You're with Mike, and you get a moment to talk to a client, a customer, a woman, let's say a woman or a man, doesn't matter, and explain to them what the invisible contaminants are, why it's so important to know this information, and if you were to describe to them what clean really is, besides the visual, tell us this. What would you tell them?
Well, if I'm working with Mikey P, I make really good coffee, Jeff. So I probably got a job on the crew. That's not a problem. Um, but the point is that there is so much in the built environment that's just invisible. And we always have that, we as we talk about that definition of clean, that absence of unwanted matter, whether it's biological, chemical, or physical, we talk about the surfaces and the air. We talk about how it supports health, safety, and performance. But, this client probably is not familiar with the invisible contaminants like bioaerosols, volatile organic compounds, and again, all the other things that we could be dealing with that could, like allergens or asthma triggers. So I talk about bacteria, viruses, allergens, also chemical residues, and I really just ask people about their health. But most of my work is really commercial and industrial. And I had a really good, in our Making Safer Choices program this year, Jeff, we had a large school, and the school had 340 students absent. And it's spring. And they're going, well, it's spring. We've got a bit of rain. We've got high pollen counts. We've got flu season. We've got kids with asthma. So it's all outside. It's outside of the school. It has nothing to do with inside the building. And they said, and I went to the school board and I said, well, you got 340 kids off this week, but the school in the same zip code just over there does not. And you're now blaming this school here with the Parent Teacher Association, the school board, were blaming the spring season and the stuff that, they thought was science-based and applicable. And so, well, how about we design a science-based project for the kids and we give them the tools that professional cleaners and restorers actually have, thermal imaging cameras, ATP meters, moisture detectors, and we just let them go crazy throughout the school and look for stuff. And we did. And guess what they found, Jeff? They found a room, a classroom in the school with using a thermal imaging camera, then a moisture meter where there was a whole wall wet. And then we took some samples and we sent the samples to the lab and we found biological contaminants, just happened to be fungal related mold. So we defined what the problem was. We said, right, guys, what do we do now? Let's get the professionals in, call in my team, Mikey's team, whoever's team it is. And what they find, damage in the roof, bit of flashing was damaged, water was leaking down the wall. But everyone in the school blamed the season, the pollen, the wet weather, the flu season, when actually some of that absenteeism might have come from the room. And through that student project, we used the tools that professional cleaners and restorers and remediators use, and we found the problem and it got fixed by professionals.
Well, great work on that. It's in this industry, you're kind of a detective as well as a technician. But you know what, Mike, thinking about that, and when you talk to your clients, do they really care other than the visual? I mean, they should.
You
I
know,
mean,
it's
I realize, let me add to this. I realize that today's episode is for professional cleaners and we need to care. That's important. But how do you make the client care?
well, early on, Gavin, you mentioned Egypt and the pyramids, and it's I can't tell you how many times I brought up the fact that I hope it's a fact that the Egyptians invented carpet to act as a filter and keep the dust on the floor, right? Embedded in the pile. And I've used that line many times, and I tell people that your vacuum's only capable of getting out so much dry soil, and once your carpet's too full, then you got to call the pros with bigger, better vacuums and hot water extraction process for the residents, right? But when you talk about schools and commercial, almost every school I've ever cleaned for, and I did quite a bit when I lived on the coast, they were all using backpack vacuums, or they were worse, hunt and pecker vacuums, going around just looking for things to vacuum up, not doing a north, south, east, west process with a proper brush roll. I do a lot of vacuum inspections, and then 80% of them, the brush roll isn't a brush roll anymore. It's just a roll with a couple of nubbins, right? So you got no agitation, very little airflow, an overly loose belt, a plugged bag. Most vacuums are in a horrible state of disrepair, and they do nothing but sweep up some visible content. And that's where we as professionals need to step in and do advise on proper procedure, and not, maybe even offer a vacuum maintenance program, because that's where it all starts. That's why it's always been my logo is the old school looking vacuum. I've used that for all my businesses. It all starts with dry soil removal. And that's probably the biggest health benefit you can give a customer, residential or commercial. Get all that stuff out, empty that filter for them. And I've been on a little bit of a tangent lately where I see most carpet cleaners get in a lot of trouble once they start selling the invisible protectors, deodorizers, disinfectants, because there's no residual effect of those in the sense that they can see a perceived value. You can buy any one of those, but other than smelling it the first day, where do they feel good about that, 6 weeks, 6 months later? Oh, I'm sure glad we spent that extra $300 on that cootie killer or that Scotch Guard that doesn't seem to affect anything, right? And are they likely to call you back if you made that quick buck? And unfortunately, this industry has always been about the quick buck. What's easy? What's easy to sell besides the cleaning? Too many of us get in on low cost, and then here comes the upsell. And everybody's pounded that into us, and so many people get by on that. Get in cheap and then look for the Scotch Guard, the deodorizer, the pet treatment, the bed bugs, the head lice, all these other invisible processes and upsells that lead to no callbacks. And I think we really need to get away from that and just charge what we're worth initially for the cleaning. Do the best cleaning possible and don't upcharge them on every step. If it needs scrubbing, scrub it. If it needs a pet urine spot flushed out, give them that within reason. Not the whole house, but a couple of spots. And you get it flushed and get it dry, and you'll have a fan base more than you can handle within a few years if you start with that mindset from the beginning. But if you start in with let's upsell, they're not going to refer you. Nobody wants to deal with being upsold in their home. It's a horrible experience. We all deal with it, whether it's the garage door guy, the rain gutter cleaner, Everyone's always trying to upsell us. And when you're selling the invisible, there's no value, long-lasting value.
Yeah, I totally agree with what Mikey's saying. We are seeing more of a drift or movement recently to data driven. We're seeing more to a drift of metrics, key performance indicators, and there's a huge gap between the commercial industrial facilities that I work with that are actually measuring and showing that maybe on a dashboard or looking at those metrics to, as Mikey said, move away from, scent or smell is not a proxy for health and safety. And it's fine if that's what you want in your house. Good. Oh, well, we can make it smell fantastic. That's not a problem. But if I jump into a rental car, you know what I do, Jeff. If it smells of citrus oil, I'll take a few samples and go, get me an upgrade. If I go into a hotel and it smells, and I'll get an upgrade. Yeah, I've got my tools in my bag all the time where I can actually measure cleanliness. And I think what's really important is that we should look at performance and reward performance from those facilities that are using more science, being more data driven, and do more storytelling around what they actually do. And so I have an airport right now, an international airport. 8 million passengers went through that airport last year in 2024. So think about if you had your house, Jeff, and 8 million people went through your house in a year, how all the stuff, all the contaminants, the bacteria, the viruses, the allergens, everything that comes in, it's a lot of stuff. And what we looked at there, I started this conversation with, well, then 8 million people went through, 8 million passengers went through your airport. Tell me what your budget is. They gave me a number. Tell me what you spend on product. Tell me what you spend on tools and equipment. They gave me numbers. Then I asked them, how do you justify that? And I was getting nowhere. So then I said, give me your absenteeism, your sick leave numbers for your custodians, the people who actually clean. And those numbers were really, really high. And they said, yeah, the people who clean our airport get sick all the time. I said, that's where we're going. We're going to focus on this. So we came up with products that were safer. We came up with processes that they could standardize and measure. We used key performance indicators. We actually used tools to measure cleanliness and indoor air quality monitors, ATP meters, thermal imaging devices, moisture detectors. We took some swabs. We put in a proper quality improvement process mapping system in there for them to actually measure it. We have now seen an 18% decrease in sick leave from the custodians compared to the last 10 years. That's big money saved. And that's people that are actually out there cleaning those airports every day going, I feel healthier, I'm happier, I'm doing a better job just because we modified the process of cleaning and then we actually measured cleanliness. We've seen an 18% decrease now compared to the last 10 years of data.
So a couple of points I want to mention before I go to you, Mike. If I had 8 million come through my home, I'd have to vacuum every day, Gavin. So there's your answer there. Every day, have to vacuum. And what you described, Gavin, is perfect for the market you're talking about, the industrial facilities, airports. Doesn't always translate, or maybe doesn't at all translate to Mike's audience, his customers, because they're homeowners. But it should, and maybe it should in the cleaning technician's head and their abilities. Because really, Mike, when you think about it, when you go into a home as a professional, it's your duty to do the very best cleaning for health process you can, whether the client cares or not. Whether or not the job is done, it smells good, and they trust you, it really should be clean. That's the point. With that in mind, how do you talk to clients when you're done with the job and you know it's clean, squeaky clean, but it still looks dirty because of wear and tear? How do you have that conversation? Because now it's visual and it is clean.
Well, there's wear marks, from the unfortunate fact that there's way too much polyester type carpet out there that just grays out and mats out and looks fugly from day two. Um, and that's hard to explain to some people. Sometimes it's pile reversal, and you got to get them to stand on the other side of the room and point out that shift in almost like a part in your hair, and let them know that that's not your doing. That was their unfortunate poor choice in carpet, and the sad fact that most manufacturers are lying on their end cap aisles and all their statements about how our flooring choices perform these days, um, especially with resilient. But let's take this back to the airport setting. I'm in a lot of airports, as you are, Jeff, and how often you see a nice, clean appearing carpet deep into the terminal? I don't, I don't know if
So
they're
I'll
using
answer
lock
that
behinds,
question.
but
I see it in some airports, smaller
yeah,
markets,
smaller airports where they can get
right?
a hose in there. But some are so long, I'm not actually sure what they're doing. But all the spills of coffees and sodas and Gatorades and all that. Um, Again, better vacuums, bigger ride-along vacuums would be helpful. And then I think most of them should be using a low moisture with a microfiber bonnet OP type machine. One, because it's so easy to train. It's a cause no harm, cause no foul situation because you really have to go out of your way to over wet. But Jeff, as I've matured in my cleaning, I've really taken a approach that the dirtier, the nastier the floor is, the less I want to do as far as trying to reach deep. That my days of rotary extractors and clear sight tubes and going over and over and over till my head's spinning with the rotary, watching that dirt come out. It's a huge mistake. We're not doing the home or business owner any favors going over the carpet that much. We can't treat these things like area rugs and think we're getting it all out. We're just making matters worse for them, creating 48, 36, too many day dry times and a huge amount of bacterial growth along with that horrible, dirty dishwater, dish towel scent when we should be turning our truck mounts down to 100 psi, just skimming the surface, make it look better, or doing a low moisture process, just make it look better. But don't get this hero complex that most of us owner operators suffer from, thinking we're going to get it all out, no matter how many times we go over it. The more we go over it, the worse it gets. And that's a hard thing for cleaners to learn, because most of us are inherently superheroes by nature. That's why we're in this business, and we think it's upon us to do it. You've seen all these YouTube rug washing videos these days where it just never ends. Next question, please.
You bring up a
There you
point. We
go.
need to address it.
Yeah.
You just offered some advice to the cleaning industry that they should do a less effective job. They should skim the surface, turn down their pressure. Mike, I don't think their intent is to tell them to do a bad job.
I wouldn't
How can
use the
we
word
how
less
can we
effect.
how can
I
we
don't, I
avoid
don't,
that? What can we do as an industry so that doesn't happen?
I think it starts with the manufacturers somehow educating and coercing more frequent cleaning. Because once you let that Egyptian rug pile up with dirt nearly all the way to the surface, it's a lost cause. So don't come in and try and pit wash a rug in the home or at a business. You gotta, again, lots of dry vacuuming and frequent cleaning, no matter what the method. But when you wait 5, 10 years and let it all build up, that's when you just gotta clean that top a little bit. Otherwise, you're creating a health hazard.
Okay.
And it
Gavin,
looks horrible when it dries.
response. What do you think of what Mike just said? And I imagine you've had cleaning done in your home. You want the very best job as a consumer. Talk about that.
Yeah, Jeff, I do get my home cleaned by professional cleaners. Um, they know what I do. They know I give them a hard time. They know I follow them around with my little devices measuring stuff. They know the stuff. They know I read labels. But the point is that I think what Mike really hit on here is the value chain of the industry and the value chain of the industry working better and together and collaborating on maintenance and care and cleanliness of the largest horizontal surface or the largest surface in any building, which is the floor. And the fact that I had a meeting just recently with 54 manufacturers, and I said, well, give me my zip code where your flooring materials are so we can talk about care and maintenance, instructions for cleaning, all that sort of stuff, and then work out how that fits in with IICRC standards, and then relate that to education and training and professional development, maybe even apprenticeship programs. And they went, what are you talking about, Gavin? Well, you make the stuff and I'm up in Philadelphia right now and I can't find your stuff on the floor. So while I'm in Philadelphia, tell me which zip code to go to and I'll go and look at it. And it's that lack of collaboration from manufacturer to distributor, reseller to installer to cleaning company to facility manager that we have to strengthen and work as a team to elevate not just what we do, but to we need to be recognized and acknowledged, but ensure that this stuff is not that hard if you follow science-based principles. What you do is evidence-based. What you do, and so I see a lot of the floor manufacturers now saying, "Well, we put the floor out, but I'm still searching for those instructions for use, and instructions for care and maintenance. Where are they? And if they're not there, then give them to me, and don't tell someone to make it up." Like like Mikey was saying, it's so important, Jeff, that the industry comes together across the whole value chain. I know we've launched our community of practice this year to try to strengthen those collaborations, those relationships. But when I used to work in the oil industry, we had the same problem where stuff was, researched and developed, implemented, and then it was screwed up because it wasn't followed. And so we said, right, everyone gets trained and they get a patch on the sleeve. Once I started putting patches on the sleeve when I worked in the oil industry, the level of performance, the level of professionalism, the level of metrics and measurement just increased exponentially because people got recognized. And that's what we're lacking, that recognition.
Again, I'm hearing from the consumer side, they need to have that confidence. We need to provide that for them. So good thoughts. So th we kind of put a challenge out there, didn't we? That the supply chain, the whole thing needs to come together and figure out and support each other, manufacturer down to the end user, everyone in between doing the cleaning, selling the product. Is there a is there a way we can package that up and make a statement? Mike, let's go to you on this. What would you like to tell manufacturers, carpet retailers to make this happen? If you had a chance to speak to all of them at one time on stage, what would you tell them?
I think the manufacturers need to address consumer displeasure and our realities. And having worked with them, on the standards with Carpet Resilient, I think a lot of them are out of touch with reality. And unfortunately, frequent replacement, whether it's due to changing of styles or displeasure with the floor's performance, is good for business. All right. The manufacturers would love it if we changed our floors out every 5 years. Back in the day when whatever it was, third generation nylons lasted for decades, that wasn't good. All right. So now I used to joke that it was almost a conspiracy theory that poor vacuum design was endorsed by the manufacturers to not get dirt out of the carpet, to wear them out. And certainly backpack vacuums with no brush roll for carpet would back that conspiracy. But if the manufacturers really took it upon themselves, and Gavin, like you said, had short, get to the heart of the matter videos, those are included with your new flooring purchase. They're easy access on how to spot clean, how to do your weekly or monthly routine, which nobody seems to want to talk about the effectiveness of flat mopping, neutral cleaners, and never dunking the mop back in the water. They'll create all kinds of devices to wring the water out, spinning and whatnot. All the silly little robots that'll clean your whole house with one pad, but they won't talk about how to properly use a flat mop where you're using one mop head for every 100 feet. And if you do that, and you can run a little disinfectant for deodorizing whatever smell you're trying to address or cootie, and it's a wonderful process, but it doesn't actually help our business as cleaners because they wouldn't need us very much if they actually did that. So how much do you want to educate someone to remove your value in their life, right? That's a hard one because I know, I'm in a position where I'm not desperate for work by any means. A few jobs a week is more than I need. But when I show someone how to properly use a flat mop, they don't need to call me anymore to keep their travertine or their vinyl clean because it just naturally happens. So, and I can see that through Facebook interactions where they're posting pictures of their puppies and their grandkids, and I see that floor that I cleaned 5 years ago and it still looks terrific. And oftentimes I'll comment, you go, "Boy, I see you're sticking up with that flat mop process," and that gets their neighbors talking. But I find I get a lot of referrals to balance that out, that them not needing me as much, but they're referring me to come resurrect the floor and then get their friends on the flat mop process. It all plays out, and you're doing mankind a great favor. But nobody wants to talk about it. Go try and find a video on YouTube right now about proper use of a flat mop. Good luck.
Not even on your YouTube?
Yeah, well, my YouTube, yeah. I got to
Yeah.
do a new one though.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, I'm guilty.
So we can't fix the world with one video interview, but those watching who are business owners, who are professionals, who want to do the very best, can up their game. Maybe that's a takeaway from this. Manufacturers that are watching, think about the communication they can offer their clients or their customers to take care of the products better. Besides that, is there another solution? Gavin, give us a final word. What would you like to see happen next from this conversation?
I totally agree with Mikey P. Adults learn by doing. And there's a number of ways that we can deliver the learn by doing approach to education and training. It's not 100 multiple choice questions, Jeff. That's not what we do to ensure that people have the skills, the competencies to clean to a different level standard. But it's about learning by doing. I'd like to see standardized definitions, Jeff. I'd like to see standardized definitions rooted in building science across the value chain. I'd like to see more measurement tools so we can move from being, what we are now, subjective and the guesswork that we do, to more evidence-based cleaning. And then I'd like more education and training and storytelling, so where we use real case studies and outcome data to connect the dots between cleaning, safety, and occupant health. Because without those metrics and that mindset shift, cleaning remains guesswork. But with them, we now have a performance standard. And people are spending money every day on cleaning different facilities, whether it be residential, industrial, commercial, without appropriate metrics.
I know that Mike would love it if his clients would follow him around the job with little measuring devices and making sure he's doing his work. Mike, you would love that because I know you.